have discussed about a dicotyledonous system, okay, which
Yes,
is differentiated into, okay, epidermis, hypodermis, cortex, endodermis, pericycle, medullary race, pith. And when you observe the vascular bundle, the vascular bundles are described as conjoint, open type, and with a endark xylem, and with a endark xylem. And next, when you come to, okay, today we'll discuss about the monocotyledonous stem. Okay, when you observe when compared to the dicotyledonous stem, the monocotyledonous stem is having a simple organization. Okay, it will be having a simple organization because, okay, okay, when you observe here, the ground tissue is not that much well differentiated. The ground tissue is not that much well differentiated in case of monocotyledonous stem when compared to dicotyledonous stem, because in dicotyledonous stem we'll find different regions like epidermis, hypodermis, cortex, endodermis, pericycle, okay, medullary race, and pith. Okay, and vascular bundles are also arranged in a radial manner in a ring-like structure, in a radially ring-like structure with a conjoint open endark xylem. But when you observe this monocotyledonous stem, we don't find such a well differentiation of the ground tissue. Okay, so we'll discuss. Okay, we'll find epidermis. Epidermis is as usual. That is, will find epidermis which is single layered thick. Okay, and it is having a multicellular outgrowths called trichomes. And next, the outer surface of the epidermis is covered by cuticle, the waxy layer, that is cuticle. Okay, and when it comes to the inner regions, to the epidermis, okay, we'll find the hypodermis. Okay, the hypodermis in case of monocotyledonous stems is made up of sclerenchyma. Okay, in case of dicotyledonous stem, it is a collenchyma. Okay, it is made up of a collenchyma. But in case of monocotyledonous stem, the hypodermis is sclerenchymatous. Okay, this sclerenchymatous hypodermis will provide mechanical support to the plant body, because in monocots usually we don't find the secondary growth. So this sclerenchymatous hypodermis only will provide the mechanical support to the plant body. So that is what we can see here. So the monocot stem has a sclerenchymatous hypodermis, a large number of scattered vascular bundles, each surrounded by a sclerenchymatous bundle sheath. Okay, when you observe here, okay, when you observe, okay, we'll find hypodermis, and inner to the hypodermis we'll find the cortex, which is undifferentiated. Undifferentiated ground tissue or cortex is observed. Okay, that means it is not differentiated to cortex or endodermis or pericycle or medullary race and pith. We don't find that much differentiation. It is a, okay, okay, it is a different, okay, it is a, okay, that means the ground tissue is distributed throughout the internal structure of the monocotyledonous stem. In that, okay, irregularly scattered. Okay, irregularly. Okay, that means there is no particular pattern. Okay, irregularly scattered. Okay, the vascular bundles are present, which are showing conjoint, closed, and endark xylem. Okay, and each vascular bundle is again surrounded by, okay, a layer of sclerenchymatous cells called as a bundle sheath. Okay, a large number of scattered bundles, each surrounded by a sclerenchymatous bundle sheath, and a large conspicuous parenchymatous ground tissue. Okay, that means here we are calling it as ground tissue because it is undifferentiated. We don't find the cortical cells, we don't find endodermis, we don't find pericycle, we don't find medullary rays, we don't find pith. Okay, we are simply here, we are calling it as a ground tissue. In that ground tissue, irregularly scattered, that means no particular arrangement. Okay, irregularly scattered, that means distributed throughout the ground tissue. Okay, the vascular bundles are present. And which is this ground tissue is made up of parenchyma cells. And next, each vascular bundle is surrounded by a layer of sclerenchymatous tissue called as a bundle sheath. And we already said vascular bundles are conjoint and closed. Conjoint, that means the xylem and phloem are present on the same radii, but we don't find a cambium in between the xylem and phloem. That's why we are describing it as conjoint and closed. And next, when you observe here the vascular bundles, the peripheral vascular bundles are generally smaller than the centrally located ones. So as the vascular bundles are scattered irregularly, in the ground tissue, that is when you observe these vascular bundles, the vascular bundles that are present towards the peripheral region are smaller in size, and the vascular bundles that are present towards the central part of the ground tissue, or central part of the stem, they are usually larger in size. Okay, and next the phloem parenchyma is absent. The phloem usually, that means in the younger parts, usually the phloem parenchyma is absent, and water containing cavities are present within the vascular bundles. Okay, that means water containing cavities, that is called lysogenous cavities. These lysogenous cavities are present with the vascular bundles, are that is especially through the xylem, within the xylem or within the vascular bundle. Okay, we'll find the water filled cavities called lysogenous cavities. Okay, that is observed with the monocotyledonous stem. Okay, when you observe the diagram, we can see here very clearly. This is the the transverse section of a monocotyledonous stem. We'll find epidermis and endodermis, and the remaining all other structures are not clearly observed. Are not clearly observed. When you observe the other regions, like a pericycle, like a cortical cells, endodermis, like endodermis, pericycle, medullary rays, pith, all these structures are not clearly seen, these in monocotyledonous plants. That's why this undifferentiated tissue, we are calling it as a ground tissue. This undifferentiated tissue, we are calling it as a ground tissue. When you observe this ground tissue, we can see here, we don't find any layers differentiated. The ground tissue, in that ground tissue we can see the vascular bundles are irregularly scattered, that means they are scattered throughout the ground tissue. And next we can see here the vascular bundles towards the towards the central region are larger in size, and the vascular bundles towards the peripheral region are smaller in size usually. That is so. That is what we can see here. The same feature we can see. We'll find epidermis, hypodermis, and next okay, the undifferentiated ground tissue, which consists of vascular bundles, okay, the xylem and phloem, okay, we can observe xylem and phloem. And next, okay, the vascular bundle is surrounded by a sclerenchymatous bundle sheath. Sclerenchymatous bundle sheath that we can observe with reference to this monocotyledonous stem. Okay, that is what we can see with reference to this. Okay, that is about this monocotyledonous stem. Anybody is having any doubt regarding the dicotyledonous stem and monocotyledonous stem?
Yes, sir.
Got that? Okay, got and comparison between dicotyledonous stem and monocotyledonous stem. Okay, and next coming to the leaf. Okay, that is a dicotyledonous leaf, or we can say it as a dorsiventral leaf, because in dicotyledonous plant we can clearly differentiate dorsal surface from the ventral surface. Okay, usually the dorsal surface is a dark green in color, whereas the ventral surface is a light green in color. Okay, okay, there is so we can able to differentiate the dorsal surface from the ventral surface. Even the internal structure of the dorsal surface and ventral surface is differed. Okay, we can understand after discussing detail about the internal structure of dicotyledonous leaf. So that's why, as we are able to differentiate the dorsal surface from the ventral surface, that's why we are calling it as a dorsiventral leaf, the dicotyledonous leaf. Okay, the dicotyledonous leaf is also called as a dorsiventral leaf. So the vertical section of a dorsiventral leaf through the lamina shows three main parts. Okay, when you observe the vertical section, okay, or transverse section, okay, the transverse section of a leaf through lamina, okay, through lamina, okay, we can observe three main parts, namely epidermis, mesophyll, and vascular system. Okay, we'll find three main regions. The first one is epidermis, and the second one is a mesophyll, and the third one is vascular bundle. Okay, first we'll discuss about epidermis. Okay, the epidermis, which covers both the upper surface, that is adaxial surface, and a lower surface, that is abaxial surface of the leaf, as a conspicuous cuticle. Okay, that means when you observe, we are observing the dorsal surface and ventral surface now. On both the surfaces, it is covered by epidermis. It is a single layered, compactly arranged parenchymatous cells. Okay, the epidermis of the leaf is consisting of or is made up of a single layer of parenchymatous cells, which are compactly arranged without any intercellular spaces. Okay, very compactly arranged. That means we don't find, okay, like a cementing, like a bricks which are joined by the cement without any, okay, like that. Okay, this epidermal cells that are present on both the surfaces, that is upper surface, that is adaxial surface, and the lower surface, that is abaxial surface. That is the dorsal surface and a ventral surface respectively. Adaxial surface means a dorsal surface and abaxial surface means a ventral surface. Or we can also say upper surface or lower surface. So on both the surfaces, we'll find the epidermis, and on the outer surface of this epidermis, which is towards the atmosphere, okay, that surface is covered by the waxy layer, that is the cuticle, on both these surfaces or on both the epidermis. So we'll find the cuticle. Okay, and next when you observe the, okay, when you observe this epidermis, okay, generally we'll observe the leaf. Okay, in the leaf we'll observe the openings. Okay, the openings that are present on the leaf we usually call it as stomata. Okay, when you observe this dicotyledonous leaf or dorsiventral leaf, we can observe very clearly. Okay, in most of the dorsiventral leaves are dicotyledonous leaf, the stomata are present on the lower surface when compared to the upper surface. Okay, usually the stomata are absent on the upper surface. They are present on the lower epidermis, not on the upper epidermis, and usually they are absent. Okay, but in some very few stomata may be present. Usually we will find more number of stomata on the lower surface or abaxial when compared to the adaxial surface or upper surface or dorsal surface. So that's okay. So we can observe very clearly. We can differentiate the leaf, whether it is a dicotyledonous leaf or monocotyledonous leaf, by observing under the microscope, mainly based on the presence of stomata. Okay, that is. So the abaxial epidermis generally bears more stomata than the adaxial epidermis. Okay, that is generally, okay, that means in some leaves, okay, on the adaxial surface the stomata are absent and they are usually present on the abaxial surface or lower surface. But in some dicotyledonous plants, we'll find more stomata towards the lower surface when compared to the upper surface. So the abaxial epidermis generally bears more stomata than the adaxial epidermis. Conditions. Okay, that is. And next, the later may even lack stomata. That's what we are saying. The later means adaxial, that is upper surface. The upper surface may even lack stomata also. That means stomata might be present only on the lower surface. Okay, and next, what is mesophil? Okay, the tissue between the upper and the lower epidermis is called mesophil. Okay, mesophil, that means whatever the tissue that is present between the upper and the lower epidermis, we are calling it as a mesophil. Okay, when you observe this mesophil, the mesophil which possesses chloroplast and carry out photosynthesis is made up of parenchyma. So the, okay, when you observe the mesophil usually consists of parenchymatous cells, and these parenchymatous cells usually consist of chloroplast and they perform photosynthesis. Okay, and next, based on the arrangement of this parenchymatous cells in the mesophil, okay, and these parenchymatous cells are again differentiated into two types. That is, it has two types of cells. That is, one is a palisade parenchyma and the second one is a spongy parenchyma. Palisade parenchyma and the second one is a spongy parenchyma. That means, okay, the parenchymatous cells which are usually present towards the upper epidermis are placed vertically and they are compactly arranged with the little intercellular spaces or with no or little intercellular spaces. Okay, the parenchymatous cells, okay, the parenchymatous cells with the chloroplast which are present towards the upper epidermis are arranged perpendicular to the epidermis, and they are compactly arranged with no intercellular space or little intercellular space. And that parenchymatous cells which are present towards the upper epidermis, we are calling it as a palisade parenchyma. Whereas, Okay, the parenchymatous cells that are present towards the lower epidermis are irregularly arranged with large intercellular spaces. Okay, and this parenchymatous tissue we are calling it as the spongy parenchyma, and this palisade parenchyma and spongy parenchyma together they form the mesophyll. Okay, that is it. So we can see here the oval are round and closely arranged. Okay, spongy parenchyma is situated below the palisade cells and extends to the lower epidermis. Okay, when you observe here, the adaxially placed palisade parenchyma is made up of elongated cells which are arranged vertically and parallel to each other. That means the cells are arranged parallel to one another, but they are vertical or at perpendicular to the epidermis. They are arranged vertically or perpendicular to the epidermis. But when you observe the each parenchymatous cells in this palisade parenchyma, they are arranged parallel. Understand? Okay, with reference to epidermis, they are perpendicular. But with reference to the adjacent parenchymatous cell, it is parallel. Understand? You understand? Anybody is having any doubt here? Okay, with reference to epidermis, okay, the cells of the palisade parenchyma are arranged perpendicular or vertical. Vertical means perpendicular, 90 degrees. That is straight downwards. Okay, but when you observe with reference to the adjacent parenchyma cells of the palisade parenchyma, they are arranged parallelly. They are arranged parallelly. We can see here. Okay, this is the upper epidermis, and upper on the outer surface of the upper epidermis we will find the cuticle, and you can see usually there is no stomata present. Next, okay, below that, okay, this is all together we are calling it as a mesophyll. And next, below this mesophyll, okay, below this upper epidermis we'll find the palisade parenchyma. Okay, we can see the palisade parenchyma, they are arranged perpendicular to the epidermis, but when you observe the adjacent parenchymal cells of the palisade parenchyma, they are parallel to one another. And here they are very compactly arranged or very closely arranged with okay, no or little intercellular spaces. That is what we can see here. So the adaxially placed palisade parenchyma is made up of elongated cells which are arranged vertically and parallel to each other. Whereas the spongy parenchyma, the oval or round. Okay, the parenchymatous cells that are present in the palisade are elongated, but the parenchymatous cells that are present in the spongy parenchyma, they are oval or round, and closely arranged spongy parenchyma is situated below the palisade cells and extended to the lower epidermis. That means they are present below the palisade parenchyma and extends up to the lower epidermis. That is what we can see here. Okay, this is a palisade parenchyma and this is a spongy parenchyma. They are present below the palisade cells and extends up to the lower epidermis. Why they are having a large intercellular spaces means they forms the air cavities which helps in the exchange of gases. There is a diffusion of gases. Okay, that's why they are showing this spongy parenchyma towards the lower epidermis, because towards the lower epidermis we'll usually find the stomata. So the air can easily get exchanged with through the stomata into this air cavities, which later they are diffused into the cells for photosynthesis. Okay, there is. So there are numerous large spaces and air cavities between these cells. That means the spongy parenchyma possesses a large number of air, okay, spaces, okay, large spaces and these are called air cavities, which helps in the exchange of gases. And next, okay, the veins. Okay, the wherever the veins we are observing, okay, at that region we can observe the vascular bundle or vascular system. Okay, the vascular system includes vascular bundles which in the veins and the midrib. Okay, wherever we'll find the veins and midrib, at that region we can observe these vascular bundles. Okay, the size of the vascular bundle are dependent on the size of the vein. Okay, depending upon the size of the vein. So that means in the midrib, we'll find the vascular bundles are larger in size, whereas the veins and the lateral veins usually possess a small vascular bundles. So the veins vary in thickness in the reticulate venation of dicot leaves. Okay, the veins vary in thickness in the reticulate venation of the dicot leaves. Okay, because because the veins are of a different size, because we find veins, veinlets, and okay, and smaller veins, further smaller veins can also. So okay, depending upon the size of the vein, okay, the size of the vascular bundles will be. So as we find different sizes of veins in a reticulate venation, because the dicotyledonous leaf usually shows a reticulate venation, so the veins are of different size, so the vascular bundles are also different sized. And next, the vascular bundles are surrounded by a layer of thick walled bundle sheath cells. Okay. And next, when you observe the figure, we can easily identify the position of xylem and phloem in the vascular bundle. We can see here. So here we can see, okay, this a pink layer. Okay, this a pink layer is a okay, nothing but the upper, okay, the epidermis. Okay, we'll find a epidermal layer on the upper side called upper epidermis, and we can also find the epidermal layer towards the lower side of the leaf, that is called the lower epidermis. That is the adaxial surface and abaxial surface. And we can see a thin coating over the epidermis, which we are calling it as a cuticle on both the sides, adaxial surface and abaxial surface. And next, the tissue that is enclosed in between the upper epidermis and the lower epidermis, we are calling it as a mesophil. Okay, when you observe this mesophil, it is differentiated into two parts, that is a palisade parenchyma and spongy parenchyma. Okay, the parenchyma cells which are elongated and compactly arranged with little or no intercellular spaces, which are arranged parallel to the parallel to one another and but arranged vertical to the epidermis. Okay, this is called palisade parenchyma. And the round or oval shaped parenchyma cells which will extend from the palisade parenchyma up to the lower epidermis with large intercellular spaces. We are calling it as a spongy parenchyma. Because the presence of large intercellular spaces, we are observing the air cavities, and these air cavities are helping in a exchange of gases in the leaf. And next, we can observe here. Okay, we can observe here the vascular bundle. That means here we are observing the vascular bundle, means it is indicating that, okay, it is showing the vein, either vein or midrib. Okay, that is. And next, when you observe here, we can observe the xylem and phloem. Xylem towards the lower side or towards the inner side, and phloem towards the outer side. Okay, and next, observe the vascular bundle. Each vascular bundle is surrounded by a sheath of cells called the bundle sheath cells. Okay, sheath of sclerenchyma cells called as bundle sheath cells. Okay, that is what we can observe when you observe the internal structure of a dicotyledonous leaf. Anybody is having any doubt regarding the dicotyledonous leaf? And next one, isobilateral or monocotyledonous leaf. That means both the surface, iso means same. Okay, that means both the surfaces of the leaf have the same organization externally and internally. That's why we are saying it as isobilateral. Okay, which is observed in usually in monocotyledonous plants. The leaves of monocotyledonous plants are usually isobilateral. That means both the surfaces are similar. Okay, that is. And next one, you observe here. The anatomy of isobilateral leaf is similar to that of dorsiventral leaf in many ways. Okay, that means we'll find the internal structure of a dicot leaf and monocot leaf. Okay, a little bit similar. Okay, it shows the following characteristic differences. So as it is showing common features, so some common features. So we are not discussing in general. Okay, we are discussing in what are the differences that we can observe with reference to dicotyledonous leaf and monocotyledonous leaf. So in an isobilateral leaf, the stomata are present on both the surfaces of the epidermis. Okay, that means that why we are calling it as isobilateral. That means when you observe the epidermis, we can easily understood. We can easily understand what is why we are calling it as isobilateral, because okay, when you observe the dicotyledonous leaf, in dicotyledonous leaf, okay, when you observe, we'll find more stomata towards the lower surface when compared to the upper surface. And in okay, the stomata are completely absent in the upper epidermis. So we can easily differentiate the upper surface from the lower surface in dicotyledonous leaf. But when it comes to monocotyledonous leaf, the stomata are equally distributed on both these surfaces. That is, in upper epidermis and lower epidermis, in both the surfaces we'll find stomata. That is a very, very important. And next, the mesophyll is not differentiated into palisade and spongy parenchyma. Okay, that means, okay, we don't find a palisade parenchyma in case of dicotyledonous leaf. Okay, usually, okay, the parenchymatous cells are the cells which are forming, okay, the parenchymatous cells which is forming the mesophyll, they are usually round or oval in shape, and they are extended, okay, throughout the mesophyll from upper epidermis to lower epidermis with large intercellular spaces. So we'll find spongy parenchyma throughout the mesophyll. So that's why we are saying that the palisade and spongy parenchyma are not differentiated. Okay, we can see here in this. Okay, we'll find upper epidermis and lower epidermis. We can see upper epidermis and lower epidermis both are showing the stomata, and we can see the mesophyll tissue, which is made up of round or oval shaped parenchymatous cells, which are equally distributed throughout the mesophyll tissue. Okay, with certain intercellular spaces. Okay, that is okay. This is the difference we can observe with reference to dicotyledonous leaf with that of monocotyledonous leaf. Okay, the vascular bundles are same. We'll find a xylem towards the inner side and phloem towards the outer side. and the vascular tissues are surrounded by a sheath, that is a bundle sheath cells. Okay, and next, when you observe in some monocot plants, okay, in the leaves of certain monocotyledonous plants like grasses, we find a specialized cells called bulliform cells. Okay, they are called bulliform cells. That means in grasses, certain adaxial, that means towards the upper epidermis. Okay, certain adaxial epidermal cells modify themselves into large empty colorless cells. These are called bulliform cells. What is the main function? Okay, when you observe, okay, depending upon the environmental conditions, okay, when you observe the leaves of the grasses, they will roll and they are able to unroll by themselves depending upon the environmental condition. That means when the conditions are not favorable, that means when the soil is when the water content in the soil is less, or when the temperature is high, when the wind is blowing heavily, okay, in all these conditions, what happens? There is a high rate of transpiration. Okay, which as a result, the plant loses a lot of water, but water availability is less. In that case, to reduce the transpiration, okay, the leaves will roll. Okay, will roll, and as a result, the surface area is reduced so that they can reduce the water loss by transpiration, by reducing the absorption of heat. So this rolling and unrolling of the leaves is due to the presence of this specialized cells called bulliform cells, okay, near the epidermis, at the region of the veins. Okay, these large empty colorless cells which are present below the epidermis of the adaxial surface, and the veins, we are calling it as the bulliform cells. Okay, when the bulliform cells in the leaves have absorbed water and are touched, the leaf surface is exposed. So when the conditions are favorable, okay, when the water availability is efficient, then what happens? The bulliform cells will will obtain sufficient amount of water. As a result, the cells are touched and helps the leaf to expose to the sunlight. But when the conditions are not favorable, or when the water content is reduced, then what happens? The bulliform cells will lose water. As a result, they lose their turgidity and they become flaccid. That means soft. Okay, when they are flaccid due to water stress, they make the leaves curl inwards to minimize water loss. That means they roll. They roll inwards. They curl. They roll inwards, and reduces the exposed surface area, thereby reduces the water loss due to transpiration. As a result, they minimize the water loss so that the plant can survive. Because if it does not roll, means the plant continuously lose water by transpiration. As a result, the plant dries up and leads to the death of that plant. So to prevent such condition, okay, usually in monocotyledonous plants, especially in grasses, okay, we'll find this bulliform cells which will roll and unroll depending upon the environmental conditions, so that they reduce the water loss or they minimize the water loss due to transpiration. Okay, and next, when you observe the monocotyledonous leaves, the monocotyledonous leaves usually possess a parallel venation. So when you observe, okay, all the veins that are arising from the midrib are having the same size. That is also reflected with that of vascular bundles. So the bundles in the veins that are arised from the midrib are showing the similar size. So the parallel venation in monocot leaves is reflected in the near similar sizes of vascular bundle, except in the main vein, that is the midrib. Except the midrib, okay, the all other veins that are erased from this midrib are showing the similar sized vascular bundles as seen in the vertical section of the leaf. Okay, when you observe the vertical section of the leaf, we can observe very clearly, okay, this arrangement of this vascular bundles which are of same size. Okay, that is what we can see here. We can observe very clearly here. Okay, this is upper epidermis which is showing stomata, and this is the lower epidermis which is also showing stomata. So that means the stomata are usually present equally distributed throughout, okay, on both the surfaces, adaxial surface and abaxial surface. Okay, and next, the mesophyll tissue is undifferentiated. We don't find palisade and spongy parenchyma, okay, as it is undifferentiated. Okay, and they are usually round or oval in shape, the parenchyma cells, and extended, okay, from upper epidermis to the lower epidermis in equal size. Okay, and next, we can observe here the vascular, okay, here we can see the vein which is showing the vascular bundle, okay, with the xylem and the phloem. Okay, and next we can see, okay, towards the upper epidermis, okay, we'll find some specialized cells which are which can form big fully cells, okay, which helps in rolling and unrolling of certain monocotyledonous plants like grasses, okay, to reduce the water loss. And the vascular bundles are usually are of similar size because of the presence of parallel venation. Okay, that is about this dicotyledonous leaf and monocotyledonous leaf. Okay, anybody is having any doubt regarding the dicotyledonous and monocotyledonous leaf?
No, sir.
Okay. And next, coming to the very important related to this anatomy of flowering plants, that is secondary growth. This is very important, ma. Okay, usually they are asking some questions in the NEET examination related to this secondary growth mostly. So this concept is very important and related to NEET. Okay, usually 1 or 2 questions they are asking from this secondary growth compulsorily. Okay, so secondary growth. Okay, the growth of the roots and stems in the length with the help of apical meristem is called primary growth. So before understanding the secondary growth, first of all, we have to know what is the primary growth. Primary growth means, okay, the growth of the root and stem in the length with the help of apical meristem or with the help of primary meristem, that is apical and intercalary meristem. We can also take into consideration the intercalary meristem. So the growth which is taken place with the help of apical meristem and intercalary meristem, because intercalary meristem is nothing but a part of apical meristem only. So that's why, so the whatever the tissues or whatever the growth that occurred, okay, with reference to this primary meristem, we are calling it as a primary growth. Usually it involves in a increase in the length of the plant body, either in the stem or root. Okay, that is after a certain period of time, especially in dicotyledonous plants with reference to stem or root. Okay, the growth not only occurs in lengthwise, the growth also occurs in the lateral wise also. radial increase in the stem and the root also occurs in the mature regions. And this is called as a secondary growth. That is what we can see here. Apart from primary growth, most dicotyledonous plants exhibit an increase in girth. Girth means width. Okay, in width-wise, it is increasing. This increase is called secondary growth. That means, okay, this increase in the width-wise of the or girth of the dicotyledonous plants, either in the stem or the root, we are calling it as a okay, this is because of the secondary growth. Okay, that is already we have discussed while we are discussing about lateral meristem or secondary meristem. We come across certain tissues which are responsible for this secondary growth. Okay, the tissues involved in secondary growth are two meristems. That is vascular cambium and cork cambium. Okay, vascular cambium and cork cambium. That is interfascicular, okay, interfascicular cambium and intravascular cambium. Okay, interfascicular cambium and intravascular cambium. Okay, that is these are the two, and another one is a cork cambium. So vascular cambium and cork cambium, these are the two major tissues which are mainly responsible for the secondary growth. Okay, we'll discuss one by one how they are involved in the formation of secondary growth. So first one we'll go with the vascular cambium. Okay, already we know very well. Okay, when you observe the dicotyledonous stem, okay, when you observe the dicotyledonous stem, we can okay recall the vascular, okay, the description of vascular tissue or vascular bundle. Okay, we can say conjoint, okay, open type and endark xylem. Okay, what is the description? We'll say means a conjoint, open type and endark xylem. Conjoint, that means both xylem and phloem are present on the same radius side by side. One is okay, phloem towards outer side and xylem towards the inner side. And next, separating these two tissues, that is the phloem towards outer and xylem towards inner, in between we'll find a layer of parenchymatous cells which we are calling it as a cambium. That is what we call it as vascular cambium. So this parenchymatous cells, these are usually parenchymatous cells, but later at the time of secondary growth, they regain the capacity to undergo cell division. That means the parenchymatous cells again, okay, that means already they are formed from certain meristematic cell by differentiation. Okay, by differentiation process, okay, some of the parenchymatous cells are transformed into, okay, the parenchymatous cells, and they are placed in between the xylem and phloem, which we are calling it as a cambium. But later, okay, in the later period of the growth of the plant body, these parenchymatous cells regains the that is the parenchymatous cells transforms into meristematic cells. That means they undergo de-differentiation. They undergo de-differentiation and from a meristematic cells into parenchymatous cells into meristematic cells. So first meristematic cells into parenchymatous cells, and again from parenchymatous cells they are de-differentiated into meristematic cells. And this meristematic layer, that is responsible for cutting of vascular tissues, xylem and phloem, is called vascular cambium. So as it regains the to undergo cell division as meristematic cells, okay, this meristematic layer that is present between the xylem and phloem and helping in a separation of this xylem and phloem, we are calling it as a vascular cambium. Okay, in the young stems, it is present in patches as a single layer between the xylem and phloem. Later, it forms a complete ring. So that means, okay, this cambium is usually present only as a patches separating the xylem and phloem. But later on, okay, this cambium, which is present between the vascular, continues to grow and forms as a ring-like structure, okay, and forms a cambial ring, which later forms the secondary tissues, are responsible for secondary growth. So how this cambial ring is formed? Okay, when you observe here, in dicot stems, the cells of cambium present between the primary xylem and phloem, okay, primary xylem and primary phloem is called intravascular cambium. Okay, when you observe here, the cambium, very clearly, the in dicotyledonous stem we'll find open type of vascular bundle. That means we'll find a thin layer of cambium separating the xylem and phloem. Okay, this thin layer of cambium that is present between xylem and phloem, we are calling it as a intravascular cambium. Here the fascicle means vascular bundle. Intra means within the vascular bundle. Cambium, that is the meristematic tissue. So the the cambial tissue that is present between the xylem and phloem within the vascular bundle, we are calling it as intravascular cambium. So, and this, along with this, we'll find intervascular cambium. Okay, where this how this intervascular cambium is developed means the cells of medullary rays. Okay, the cells of medullary rays adjoining this intravascular cambium become meristematic and form the intervascular cambium. Thus, a continuous cambium is formed. So, when you observe here, okay, we'll go back to the dicotyledonous stem. Okay, we'll go back to the dicotyledonous stem. Okay, when you observe here, we can see, okay, this is xylem, this is a phloem, and this is the cambium. So this cambium is called as a intravascular cambium because this cambium is present between xylem and phloem within the vascular bundle. That's why we are calling it as an intravascular cambium. Okay, now, and next, okay, this is one vascular bundle and adjacent another vascular bundle will be present. So here, this is the medullary rays. Okay, we all know very well the medullary rays in case of dicotyledonous stem are made up of parenchyma cells. So, okay, for example, okay, we can see this is the medullary rays, okay, the tissue of medullary rays, and this is the parenchyma cell which is present adjoined to the cambium, okay, or intravascular cambium. So this parenchyma cells which are present adjoining to the intravascular cambium now transforms into, that means they undergo dedifferentiation and transforms into meristematic cells, and this meristematic tissue which is formed, okay, from the parenchyma cells of medullary rays adjoining to the intravascular cambium, we are calling it as intervascular cambium, and this is also transformed into meristematic, so they also undergo continuous cell division. Okay, that means when you observe here, okay, so we can see here, so this is one vascular bundle and this is another vascular bundle. Here we are observing the intravascular cambium, here also the intravascular cambium. So this is the medullary rays. So here we find the parenchyma cells. Okay, some of the parenchyma cells which are present adjoining to this medullary rays. Okay, we can see here. This is the medullary. Here we can observe the parenchyma cells. Okay, this parenchyma cells which are present adjoining to this intravascular cambium. Okay, they undergo dedifferentiation and transforms into meristematic cells. And this meristematic cells will divide and move towards the outer region in opposite directions. And okay, that means this meristematic cells will divide and move towards, okay, move in this direction, and this meristematic cells will divide and move in this direction. So these two will move in opposite direction, and finally they meet at one point, and finally they adjoin with the intravascular cambium. Okay, the intervascular cambium adjoins with the intravascular cambium, and finally it forms a structure. Okay, forms, okay, that means all they will join together and forms a ring like structure, and that is called as a cambial ring. We can observe here. Yeah, like this we can see here. Okay, this is intravascular cambium, this is intervascular cambium, and both are adjoined with one another and finally forming a ring like structure, calling it, we are calling it as a cambial ring. Like that the cambial ring is formed. Okay, from this cambial ring the secondary growth will occur. Okay, what is the activity of this cambial ring? That one we'll discuss in the next class. Up to now, anybody is having any doubt?